Despite Luka Doncic being in foul trouble, Kawhi and the Clippers did not lead for even a second last night in a 127-114 loss. Kawhi had 35 points, but it was paired with a poor 4 of 17 shooting night from Paul George. And after the game, Luka said analysts should be saying the Mavericks have a shot to win the series, especially now that the series is tied at a game apiece. Chris Broussard still with us. Your biggest takeaway from last night's game?
Well, first, I do have to say that the Mavericks are a really good young team. Like I've said that in 2 years, they'll be a legitimate title contender. Maybe that's next year. I mean, those guys are tough. They obviously shoot the ball really well. But let me get to the Clippers. I could talk about Patrick Beverley not being there with the sore calf. I could talk about Paul George going 0 in the first half and only finishing with 14 points. I could talk about their bench being outplayed for the second straight game, which is shocking because they've got 2 of the top 3-6 men in the league. Or I could talk about their poor free throw shooting or three-point shooting, 29%. But to me, what this all boiled down to, and my biggest takeaway, is that this nonchalant, kind of lackadaisical, maybe even entitled attitude that I think the Clippers have had all year. And maybe it starts with load management when your best player load manages. But it seems like they felt like no matter what happens, whether we used to playing with each other or not, whether we've only played 11 games together, whether this guy's in or out of the lineup, we can step on the court and beat whoever. Seeding doesn't matter. None of it matters. I don't know if they've been listening to the pundits, including myself and
yes.
who have anointed them.
That's where I'm going. Yes.
A lot of people say they're the best team in the world already. And they, as we would say in the old days, they're reading their press clippings. But I just think that caught up with them last night because to me, you saw a decided difference in the way they approached the fourth quarter. It didn't work, but they came out, they were aggressive defensively. They seemed to be more into it. And it was too late, though. Dallas was rolling. They couldn't stay in front of those little guards, and they lost. So I think ultimately this could be a good thing for the Clippers because I just think they felt like we're going to step on the court and win. And they learned last night, you're not winning a championship. You're not winning the West. You may not even win a series if you don't bring your A game and have an attitude adjustment that these playoffs are real and these teams are really out to beat you and capable of beating you. So I'm still with the Clippers. Picked them in 5 in this series. Still think they win it. But they needed an attitude adjustment, and I think they got it last night.
Well, Chris, that's where you ended where I was going, is because you and a lot of others made excuses. They lose in the regular season, and Kawhi got lit up. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's the playoffs. Paul George get lit up. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's the playoffs. Now, Luka Doncic dropped 42 on them. Well, when you wait to see what he was just feeling out, they're going to wear him down. Now, Luka had 22 in the first half, 22, 6, and 5. Now, he doesn't get in foul trouble and only plays like 7, 8 minutes in the second half. He's going for another 40 spot. So you can do all this talking, and I keep telling you, Kawhi Leonard is not the same defensive player that he was. He's not, because now he's more focused on offense, because the attention comes when you play offense. And there have been very few players that had an offensive game plan, a game, and had a defensive game to match. That's Kobe and Mike. LeBron had a little stretch there for about 3 or 4 years where he could dominate. But what we've seen from Kawhi is that Kawhi's last healthy year in San Antonio, he was Defensive Player of the Year, and he averaged 20. And we're like, man, two-way, Kawhi says, I don't want to be no two-way player. I want to be the best player. And the way to do that is to score these buckets. So that's what he's focusing more on the offensive end. Ain't no way. Kawhi's last year in San Antonio, he was healthy, Skip. There is no way Luka Doncic is beating him off the dribble to the basket, basically whenever he wants to. They're getting whatever they want. Trey Burke, as I told you off air, Chris, I thought it was the conga line. You see how they going to the basket on them jokers? Looking like Isaiah Thomas. Even son-in-laws. Seth Curry say, hey, Pop, what you think about that, Doc? Because you know he married Doc. Hey, Pop, look at me. To the hole on him. And one. It was up. I was surprised with the ease in which the Mavs got to the basket. Okay, they won because, you know, you're shooting the ball. Okay, you get hot one night, you can do that. But how they could take off the dribble, everybody seemed to be emboldened. Like, man, as slow as Billy Hall is, that's what they call Luka Doncic, Billy Hall. You know, white men can't jump, Skip. They call it Billy Hall. They say if he can get to the rack, I know I can. And here comes Steph. Here come Hardaway Jr., Finney Smith, everybody taking turns. I want some. Got him. Now what, Skip?
You finished? Hey, Chris. The Clippers were so awful last night. They were so flawed. They were so exposed that my man Shannon Sharp, earlier in this show, predicted they're going to win the next 3 games and win this in 5.
I picked them in 5.
Okay, well, then what are you spewing about? What's all the problem? It doesn't even matter. Last night was inconsequential. They're just going to flip the switch and say, that's enough.
No.
Watch this, baby bird. We'll put you right back in your nest.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're going to be whining for your dinner, right? Because you need some more. You need to grow up.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's what you're telling me. If you flipped the script and you said, the Mavericks got this, I would respect it. But I can't put any credibility in everything you just said.
Well, if Kane Fitzgerald hadn't have came to the party, what he was invited to and found out Porzingis.
Flip your script. Have your guts. Put your Mountain Dew where your Diet Mountain Dew where your mouth is. And tell me that the Mavericks are going to win this series. Okay, well, then we're good. We're good. Next question, right? Okay, I agree. The problem last night was that Paul George turned back into the guy I don't love, George Paul. In playoffs, big playoff games in Indiana, he turned into George Paul. You can't always trust him. He is a complimentary star. He's not the guy.
No.
And all of a sudden last night, when I least expected it, whoops, 4 of 17 and 2 of 10. And if we could see that one air ball he shot, it was really the end of the game because they were only down 3 at this point. And George Paul shows up again and shoots the worst air ball you'll ever see because this one misses, I think it was 4 feet wide left. What are you doing, George? I don't know what you're doing. And that was sort of the end of their spirit because they didn't have Patrick Beverley, who is their tone setter, especially on the defensive end. I told you last week he is the 3rd most important Clipper. And the shame of last night was that Luka is sitting on the bench, grinning and resting for the whole run that just blew the Clippers off the court.
Yeah.
It was all the backups. It's starting with Seth Curry, who had a night. He looked like Steph Curry last night. He was pretty special coming off the bench and making shots. And when Boban comes in and does that to you. And
Big Bo looking like Elijah Wan out there, Chris.
My God. And then the other problem with the Clippers is Doc is having to play early playoff games like they're scrimmages because he's trying to work Montrez back into the flow. It's like a practice game. Montrez played 22 minutes last night, and before game 1, he hadn't played a basketball game since March the 10th. He shows up late. Obviously, the bubble lost his grandmother. It had to be quarantined, and he missed all the scrimmages in the bubble. He missed every regular season conclusion game in the bubble. And now he's thrown into a playoff game, 22 minutes?
Yeah.
What do you expect from him? He's a little shaky. He's having a hard time.
Hey, guess what? In them seeding games, guess what else he was doing, Chris? Collecting checks. So guess what? Doc said you was collecting these checks. Get your butt out there, run up down the court, and give us some points. That was the difference in the ball game, is that their bench, very seldom does the Clipper bench get outscored. As you mentioned, Chris, they got 2 of the 3 top 6 men in the year. That's why they're in the final voting. Lou Will and Trez. And that bench gave it to him last night. I mean, Trey Burke, Seth Curry, they were unbelievable. Seth Curry put skates on your guy. But what he didn't show you is that his guy, did you see that brick he shot, Chris? How you on one side of the rim and you hit the backboard on the other side without touching the rim? He must have thought it was a Philly game. You were going to get 4 or 5 bounces and it was going to go in.
And despite all that, Kawhi Leonard only goes for 35 and 10 last night. Is that any good?
Get where he came to, though,
35 and 10.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell Governor Newsom. But I had his Ohio party last night for him. Serving up the mails. He came to see me because he cut my power off. Don't tell Governor Newsom.
Really?
Yeah, he came by club.
Really?
Yep. Got the old hot air.
I'm going to snitch on that one. So guess what, Chris and Shannon?
What?
I predicted this before it all started. I said Clippers in 7. And I stick by my pick. Clippers in 7.
I don't know.
Yep, it's going to be a battle.
All right,
I
okay.
have 5.
You got 5? Okay. Chris, enjoy the games today. Always a pleasure to have you join us on Undisputed. We'll check in with you later this week.
Mavs in 5.
Of course, Shannon. Okay, next up is new Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy actually losing some of his power already.
Yep.
Guys, it hasn't even been that